Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I wanted to talk to you about my Chiari I malformation journey. This is the first video that I've made. I was diagnosed on April the 2nd, but my symptoms actually go back more than a year. So this video is mostly for people who have been diagnosed with Chiari I malformation. My original symptom, which it didn't stand out by itself, was these headaches that I would get when I coughed, like if I had a respiratory infection. And the headaches didn't start in the back, where a lot of the headaches associated with Chiari I start. They would start at the top of my head, and I could feel them all the way down to my teeth. And they would last for about 20 seconds at a time. But they weren't happening with such a consistency that I would need to go see a doctor. So the next thing that I went through was coughing that would wake me up in the middle of the night. And usually when I would have bronchitis or a respiratory infection and I started coughing, I would have to sleep sitting up, like in the recliner in my living room. But again, they weren't occurring enough for me to go to a doctor. I thought maybe it was an allergy. So last year progressed as normal until around Thanksgiving, and I had, I think, an upper respiratory infection, probably congestion. And when the congestion passed, what I noticed was pressure on the left side of my head in my ear. I thought maybe it was impacted wax. So I did everything that you're supposed to do before you go see the doctor. I didn't have any signs of infection, and I had tried flushing my ear out with, warm water and peroxide, hydrogen peroxide, and that didn't work. So around January 15th, I went to a regular doctor, and there was, like I said, no signs of infection. There was no fluid in the ear canal. There was nothing to indicate that there was wax buildup. So I left there, and around the end of the month, I went to go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And the ear, nose, and throat doctor had my hearing tested, and my hearing was working fine. Sound got through, even though it sounded muffled and kind of blocked. My eardrums were functioning normally. So we threw a pharmacy at it, and I took some steroids, and I tried Flonase, and I tried either Sudafed or over-the-counter Claritin, and it just wasn't working. So I went back to that same doctor in February, and I said, can we talk imaging, because this just doesn't feel right. The pressure is getting worse. So that doctor ordered an MRI and referred me to a neurologist. So when I got the results of that MRI, I started looking up some of the terms that I saw in the MRI. One of them was Chiari malformation. And so I, did some searching, came across the fact that it's usually congenital. And I thought, okay, that means I was born with it. But it was fixable. So I saw the neurologist on April the 2nd, and we looked through the images of the MRI. And the neurologist said, you have something called Chiari malformation. Originally, we thought it was Chiari II, which is associated with spina bifida, but I didn't have that. And so he ordered another MRI for a neck and spine, and he referred me to a neurosurgeon. And I had the second MRI on April the 12th, and I met with a neurosurgeon on May the 1st. And that neurosurgeon went over the results of that MRI with me and let me know that I had on my spine something called a syrinx, which is a fluid-filled cyst. And it was because of what was going on with the Chiari malformation is my cerebellum, in the back of your head, had herniated into my cerebrospinal column. And that was causing the fluid to back up into my brain and cause the pressure that I was feeling. But because that same blockage, that was causing the pressure to build up around my spine. And so I met with that neurosurgeon on May the 1st, and the next day, his nurse practitioner called me back, and she said that he didn't have any openings on his surgical schedule because I was a candidate for what's called posterior fossa decompression surgery, which is where they remove a small piece from the back of your skull and another piece on top of that so that the cerebellum has room to move. And then there's a cut in the dura, which is between the skull and the brain, is the thin layer, and a medical patch would be placed on top of that to allow the cerebellum to move. I knew that I wasn't going to make it until July. I'm also an educator, and this is a 4 to 6 week recovery period time. So the nurse practitioner said, this doctor has a colleague who has openings earlier that might allow you to have your recovery period of 4 to 6 weeks so that you can report back to work August 1st. I said, let's do it. And there's a lot more to it, but basically, thankful for insurance. I am 8 days away from posterior fossa decompression surgery. And I want to try to upload this to my YouTube channel to put this out there so that you know if you have been diagnosed, you're not alone. Before I stop the recording, I should also tell you that some symptoms that I had not had prior to the meeting with the neurosurgeon started appearing and cascading right before the meeting with the first neurosurgeon. And I should back up to say that the surgeon, I think I've already mentioned that his colleague is the one who's going to be doing my surgery. So right before I met with the first neurosurgeon, I started experiencing some balance issues, dizziness. And I met in a video conference with his colleague a week later. And by that point, I was experiencing dizziness and vertigo. And a new symptom had started before I met with the first neurosurgeon and this neurosurgeon, which was a pressure in my neck. And so it felt like Darth Vader was pinching my neck from the left, and I was having difficulty breathing. So that's kind of where I am today as far as symptoms are concerned. I don't know if this makes a whole lot of sense, but I want to put this out there so that if you come across this, you can ask me questions and you can follow me on my journey all the way, through surgery as best as I'm able, and afterwards in recovery, scars and all. So ask your questions, and I'll do my very best to answer them.